There's a moment every man reaches, the moment he just stops. He stops texting first, stops checking his phone, stops rehearsing what to say to fix things. The energy that once chased her is suddenly still, and that silence, it echoes. At first she seems fine, maybe even relieved, but then something shifts. She starts checking your story, asking about you, posting things that feel like bait. You can sense it, the unease in her calm. Here's what most men never realize. She doesn't lose her mind because she lost you. She loses it because she lost her grip on you. The chase was her mirror, and when you stopped reflecting her value, she was forced to face something she'd been running from all along, her emptiness. This isn't a trick. It's a truth. Nothing destabilizes a woman faster than a man who's no longer trying. Every man has done it. Mistaken effort for attraction, thinking if he just shows her enough attention, she'll see his worth. You send the good morning texts, you plan the dates, you respond fast, stay available, stay kind. You think consistency proves loyalty. But here's the brutal truth. What you call consistency, she experiences as predictability. And nothing kills female desire faster than predictability. In the beginning, she's intrigued. The messages excite her. The energy flatters her. But human psychology is cruelly efficient. The brain adapts fast to what's constant. What once felt exciting now feels expected. What once made her feel chosen now feels routine. The chase she claimed to hate was the very thing that made her feel alive. You didn't lose her because you did something wrong. You lost her because you did everything right, relentlessly. She stopped wondering. She stopped imagining. She could read you like a book, and no one stays addicted to a story they've already memorized. When a man over-pursues, he becomes emotionally transparent. She can predict every message, every gesture, every apology. And with that predictability, she loses respect. Because attraction isn't built on comfort. It's built on uncertainty, on curiosity, on wondering what he'll do next. When she stops wondering, her desire fades. And here's the paradox. The more you give, the less she feels. She doesn't consciously choose this. It's how her emotional system evolved. Women are drawn to movement, to polarity, to the tension between pursuit and restraint. When that tension disappears, so does the spark. You thought chasing her proved your strength, but it only proved you needed her validation more than your own peace. That's when everything flips, because the moment you stop chasing, you stop feeding her emotional certainty. And that's when her mind starts to unravel. There's a quiet moment most men never forget. The day you finally stop caring. Not out of anger, not as a tactic, but because something inside you just breaks clean. You stop chasing closure. Stop explaining your worth. Stop trying to solve the mystery of her silence. You stop fighting for someone who stopped showing up for you. And that shift, that surrender, changes everything. At first, she doesn't notice. You've pulled back before, and you always came back. But this time, something's different. You're not pulling away to get a reaction. You're reclaiming your peace. Your energy feels different, not cold, but self-contained. You stop orbiting her, and in that stillness she feels it immediately. She doesn't understand it, but she feels the gravity shift. Here's what most people never realize. When you stop trying, you don't disappear. You become unpredictable. She can't read you anymore. The man who used to jump at her texts now leaves her undelivered. The man who used to beg for attention now moves through his life untouched by her absence. And that unpredictability, that distance, becomes magnetic. At first she'll tell herself she doesn't care. She'll say you're being immature, that she's done. But silence is a mirror, and yours reflects something she wasn't ready to see. How much of her power depended on your pursuit. When you stop giving her that reflection, she loses her reference point. It's not love she starts missing, it's certainty. The certainty that no matter what she did, you'd always return. The moment that certainty dies, her curiosity is reborn. She starts to wonder, to remember, to replay. And that's when she begins to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Desire. Not for your attention, but for your validation. The balance has shifted. The one who is being chased is now quietly chasing clarity. When a woman feels a man pull away, her first instinct isn't sadness, it's confusion. Her mind races to solve a problem she doesn't yet understand. Did I do something wrong? Has he lost interest? Has he found someone else? But beneath all that noise is something far more primal. Fear. Not fear of losing you, but fear of losing her power over you. Here's the brutal biological truth. The female brain is wired to detect social value and emotional hierarchy. A man's attention is not just affection, it's validation of status, desirability, and emotional control. When that validation suddenly vanishes, her nervous system interprets it as rejection from the tribe. Evolution coded it this way. In ancestral terms, being ignored meant being devalued, and being devalued meant potential exclusion, psychological death. That's why indifference doesn't just sting, it destabilizes. Your silence triggers a survival-level alarm in her brain. The same dopamine pathways that once lit up when you texted her. Now, flood with cortisol and anxiety when you don't. Every minute of your absence amplifies her need to restore balance. Not because she loves you, but because she needs the chemical relief your attention once provided. You've become her regulator without realizing it. When you chased her, you trained her nervous system to depend on that chase. When you stop, she crashes. Her brain doesn't know the difference between emotional withdrawal and physical withdrawal. It's the same addiction cycle. That's why she spirals. One moment, she's angry and dismissive. The next, she's posting thirst traps, fishing for a reaction. Then, she's texting you something random. Anything to get a flicker of that old attention back. Indifference creates the illusion of scarcity, and scarcity intensifies value. The less she can access you, the more her brain convinces her she needs to. It's not logic, it's chemistry. Your absence becomes the most stimulating presence in her life. This is the paradox of power in relationships. The one who needs less always controls the emotional rhythm. You didn't manipulate her, you just stopped providing the emotional currency she was addicted to. And her panic? That's the market crashing. Once you understand this, you stop taking her confusion personally. You see it for what it is, biology rebelling against indifference. When a woman begins to lose emotional control over a man she once effortlessly influenced, her ego doesn't go quietly, it revolts. It's not love that drives her next moves, it's self-preservation. She needs to prove to herself that she still matters, that she can still command the same attention she once did. So she fights for that validation, but not in ways that look like love, in ways that look like chaos. She'll test boundaries she used to respect. She'll post subtle provocations online, say things designed to provoke jealousy, or suddenly act indifferent to your absence. All calculated responses to a silent threat she doesn't fully understand. She's trying to force a reaction out of you to re-establish the old emotional hierarchy. But when you stay grounded, calm, unbothered, detached, that's when the cracks deepen. Because the truth she's fighting isn't about you. It's about her loss of identity. Your lack of response forces her to face something terrifying. She built her self-worth around how you responded to her. Every compliment, every effort, every emotional pursuit from you was a mirror that reflected her value back to her. And now that mirror is gone. That's why she'll say things like, "You've changed," "You're acting cold," or "You don't care anymore." It's projection. What she really means is, "I don't feel like the woman I used to be when you were chasing me." Her power depended on your pursuit. Without it, she's left with herself. And the silence reveals what attention used to hide. This is the breaking point for many men. They confuse this panic for rekindled love. It's not. It's ego withdrawal, not emotional rebirth. Her actions aren't fueled by affection. They're fueled by desperation to reassert dominance. If you take the bait, the balance resets. She wins the game again. But if you hold your center, if you remain calm and quietly focused on your purpose, something deeper happens. She begins to feel respect again. Not attraction built on dopamine, but respect built on stability. And that respect, slow, uncomfortable, reluctant, is the first seed of true polarity. When a woman loses emotional leverage, her reactions don't make sense, at least not logically. One day she seems furious with you. The next she's nostalgic, even tender. Then she's gone cold again. This back and forth isn't manipulation. It's emotional withdrawal manifesting in real time. You've become the variable in her system she can't regulate anymore, and she's swinging between anger and longing, trying to restore equilibrium. This is why she'll oscillate between blocking you and stalking you insulting you and complimenting you, pretending to move on while keeping tabs on everything you do. She's not sure whether she wants you back or just wants to know she could get you back if she wanted. That distinction between desire and control is where her internal war lives. Women are emotional economists. They sense value shifts before men do. When you were chasing, her emotional stock was sky high. Every compliment inflated it further. But when you stopped investing, the market crashed, and she's been trying to pump her own value ever since. That's why she'll date someone else too soon, flaunt attention online, or subtly remind you what you've lost. It's not about connection. It's about restoring equilibrium to her ego. But what she doesn't realize is this. Every attempt to get your attention only proves she's still orbiting you. Every post, every rumor, every message, it's energy invested back into the very man she claims she's over. That's the paradox of feminine control. The more she tries to prove her independence, the more she reveals her attachment. If you understand this, you stop reacting. You stop trying to win or lose. You let her feel the full silence she created. Because only in that silence does she learn the truth. She never lost a man. She lost her reflection. At some point, the noise stops. The arguments, the games, the endless emotional negotiation, all of it just goes quiet. And in that silence, something remarkable happens inside a man. You realize it was never about her. It was about what chasing her made you forget about yourself. When you finally walk away, not as a tactic, but as a truth, you reclaim something she never could give you: self-respect. For months, maybe years, your energy revolved around proving your worth to someone who measured you by how much you'd sacrifice. But the moment you stop proving, something ancient stirs in you: authority. You no longer need her validation to feel significant. You start to notice how peaceful your mind feels, without the constant emotional turbulence. You stop waking up with anxiety over messages that never come. You realize the weight you thought was love was actually dependency. That's the revelation every man eventually reaches. Chasing a woman never earns love. It just delays self-respect. And when she feels that shift, she knows. Women can sense when a man's energy changes, when he stops orbiting them and becomes the center of his own gravity. It's unsettling to her, because she built her identity around being the emotional axis of your world. And when she no longer is, she must face her own emptiness without your attention to fill it. But here's the paradox. The moment you no longer need her is the moment she starts needing you again. Not because you've done anything new, but because your indifference radiates strength. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the quiet power of a man who finally sees through the illusion. When you walk away with peace, not pride, you become the kind of man no woman can control, because you no longer need control to feel secure. The hardest truth to accept is that your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. When she realizes you're truly gone, not pretending, not waiting, but gone, her mind begins its descent into chaos. She replays old conversations, scrolls through photos, stalks your updates. Every quiet moment becomes an echo of what used to be certainty. At first, she blames you. He gave up, he stopped trying. But over time, the blame turns inward. Why didn't I appreciate him when he was there? Why didn't I notice he was slipping away? This is the beginning of her emotional reckoning, the collision between ego and accountability. She'll try to replace you, but it won't work, because it's not you she's missing. It's the version of herself that existed when you were chasing her. That validation loop, that constant reassurance of her worth, is gone. And the men who come after you don't chase the same way, because most of them don't care enough to. You did. That's what makes the loss hit harder. Here's what nobody tells you. Women don't regret losing men. They regret losing the way those men made them feel. And when you stop providing that feeling, when you reclaim your power and redirect your energy, you become irreplaceable. Not because of scarcity, but because peace has gravity. She'll mask it with confidence, with new stories, with forced laughter. But behind every post, every smile, there's that quiet question she can't silence. What if he really doesn't care anymore? That's when obsession begins, not with love, but with the loss of control. And that, right there, is the moment she finally understands what you learned long ago. Peace is the most dangerous kind of power. There's a moment when everything reverses. The The same woman who once seemed unreachable now studies your silence like scripture, decoding every move, every post, every absence. But what she doesn't realise is that something far more powerful has already happened. You've stopped seeing her as the prize. You've become it. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You've returned to yourself, your time, your focus, your mission. The energy that once bled into a validation now fuels your growth. You're sharper, calmer, more intentional. The kind of man who doesn't chase because he doesn't need to. And that shift, more than any game or strategy, changes everything. When you become the prize, you stop negotiating your value. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving emotional discounts to anyone who hasn't earned access to your peace. The irony? That's exactly when people start chasing, because human nature always pursues what feels scarce and self-contained. Women aren't addicted to men who ignore them. They're addicted to the certainty they can't get from them. Your distance becomes mystery. Your focus becomes magnetism. Your indifference becomes intrigue. You've transformed from predictable comfort into emotional contrast, and contrast is the birthplace of attraction. But the real victory isn't in making her chase again. It's in realizing you don't need her to. You've outgrown the game she's still playing. You've stopped trading your dignity for dopamine. You've learned that the man who masters his energy becomes untouchable, because nothing external can control him anymore. That's the shift most men never reach. They chase because they fear loss. You stopped because you understood something deeper. What's meant for you doesn't need chasing, and what needs chasing was never yours. So you let her wander. You let her miss the version of you she took for granted. You let her sit in the silence she once mistook for victory. Because now, you know that peace isn't passive. It's power in its purest form.